Hello, it's your friend and humble narrator, Lou Brutus, joined by the charming and effervescent Arejay Hale of Halestorm. Arejay, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Lou. How are you? It's good to see your face. I haven't seen your face in a while since you were on my show. So thank you
Yeah,
for
I
having
know.
me
I
on
had a
your
great
show.
time. You know what? Let's talk about the podcast a little bit, if we can. Tell me about your co-hosts and how it first came around. I had a blast on there talking about my book, Sonic Warrior.
Yeah, that was great. I'm glad you actually kicked off our last season. You were our first. You were our season
Opener.
opener. Yeah, beginner. And that was great. It was like we started the season out on a high note, and everybody loved it. The response was great. For those who don't know, the podcast is called Stop, Drop, and Talk. I have a sign over here somewhere. I took it down
Yeah, I want to see the sign.
because this is also my where I do like business meetings and interviews. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're right on Hollywood Boulevard," but I usually have this sign up here like that. And so currently, we haven't been making any new episodes because Halestorm is starting up. I've got a lot of musical projects in the works. My co-hosts are also very busy. Eva Steele, she has a dance troupe called Dirty Sexy Riot, and now that live entertainment is happening again, everyone's just been really focused and gung-ho on getting things going there. So the podcast started as a way for us to have a creative outlet during the pandemic when we weren't able to really perform or do anything, especially for me and Eva. Brock also is tours, and he's a producer, and he does camera work. And our producer Dan is very successful, as you know, Dan Catullo, and he's very busy right now with many projects. So currently, we're just kind of putting up some throwbacks, some of our best highlights over the past 3 seasons that we're kind of steadily feeding on our YouTube page and our Facebook page and all that, and on our social media. So it's still going, and we're definitely talking about doing something pretty soon. Now that we're playing festivals again, and we're talking about even bringing my co-host to some of these festivals where we can actually bring Stop, Drop, and Talk on the field, like on the grounds, talking to people and messing with people and catching up with all of our old friends. Because as you know, these festival shows are like family reunions. You have one of the best staminas I've ever seen as a media person at these festivals. I see you constantly running back and forth and talking to everybody and catching up with everybody, and that's very admirable, Lou. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm the hardest working lazy guy I know.
Hey, join the club.
Be a musician, they said. It'll be easy,
Fun,
they said.
It'll be a constant party, they said. Yeah.
Well, Arejay, you referred to getting back to work, and as of the recording of this conversation right now, give me the experiences you've had both with the gig in Nashville and, of course, the show in York, PA, which I know was one was very small, one was very large.
Yeah, we did a little secret show in Nashville at the Basement East, or the Beast, they call it. And it was cool. It was just like a very tiny little kind of no announcement, just kind of a word of mouth kind of thing. We just told a couple of our friends, and it was mostly just like kind of our friends and family and, some of our, fans that we consider friends and family with us because they've been with us for so long. A lot of them traveled all the way down just to come to the show. They were lucky enough to score some tickets before it sold out. So it was really cool, and it was really fun to do a show that was completely free at the Basement East, and they really appreciated it because it was definitely over the pandemic, the local venues took a big hit, and that was definitely something of our concern everywhere. I've done so many liners, so many press things to bring awareness to supporting your local music venues, and the Basement East are definitely one of them. And not only that, but the Basement East got hit by a tornado before the pandemic even started. So it's been a rough go for those guys, but they're killing it right now. And they were one of the first places that I went to when shows started. It was like one of the first shows I actually went to. I went to go see my friend Nick Perry, who used to play in Silvertide and Shinedown, and now he's got a solo thing, and it's great. So it was cool to be able to do a free show, very limited capacity, but they made a killing at the bar that night. So it was a great way for us to try to help them out as well as them helping us out by letting us do a free show just to get some practice, shake the dust off, because we hadn't played up until then for a year and a half. And we're the kind of band that is very much reliant on not using backtracks and not using a click track even, which makes the job harder on us, but easier because we have less. Because knowing us, if we implemented things like that, we would have technical difficulties all the time. Because we're a technically inept band, a live band. Everything's very raw and in your face. So it was very important for us to get a live show out of the way. Because, I mean, as any musician or touring musician or band knows, there's a huge difference between you can practice. And we did. We did production rehearsals for like a full week every single day. And also rehearsals in my bandmate's basement up in Nashville, up in Old Hickory. And like we had jammed and worked. And once you get in front of an audience, all that, a lot of it retains, but most of it goes out the window and you're kind of back to square one. So we have learned over the years to always be sure, if we haven't played in a while, we need to at least have like some sort of little tiny, secret practice show before we do it for real. So.
One quick aside, a little bit further back in your answer, it was great to hear you mention Nick Perry, who was in fact the very first person I saw on stage after not seeing shows because of the pandemic. He opened for Rick Nielsen, a Cheap Trick.
Same show, yeah.
Yeah, Nielsen Family Trust. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was the same thing. Yeah, I saw it a couple of nights later in Annapolis, Maryland. I journeyed to far away Annapolis, Maryland for Father's Day to go see Rick. So
cool, man. Yeah, Rick was, his whole family is, wow, what a talented family he's
got. Oh God, yeah.
And Rick Nielsen's one of the nicest guys ever. But Nick Perry, and also his bass player Brian Weaver, his drummer Zill. I've known those guys from Philly, for years and years and years ago. And we used to play shows with Silver Tie. We used to play shows with Pepper's Ghost. We would play shows with those I've toured with Brian with a lot of his other bands that he's been in. So I hadn't seen those guys in so long, and I was so shocked at how. And I went into it like thinking, okay, Nick Perry is a great guitar player, one of the best of all time, and now he's singing. I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. But to my pleasant. I wasn't say I would be surprised because the dude is just oozes with talent. I knew it was going to be great, but I didn't expect him to be that great of a singer. I remember thinking like, you've been able to do this for all this time and you never showed it to anybody? Like his voice was actually great. Like he sang, he has a real power in his voice. I was like, man, like you should have been doing this years ago. And so I was really glad. I'm just really glad to see him doing his own thing. He's been a guitar player for a lot of, my favorite bands. And now to see him doing his own thing where he's singing and playing guitar, it was just like, oh man, like that's my boy right there. And I can see I see so much growth. I still so much growth in him as an artist,
Well, let's now talk more about Halestorm. You mentioned the sort of warm-up gig in Nashville already, which was sort of like a prelude for the big Back to the Red Lion area show in York, PA. And I had seen you play that fair before. You guys played that, it must have been 6 or 7 years ago. And if I remember correctly, Tom Kiefer, who I know is one of Lizzie's favorites, opened up the show. I think you guys invited him to open that gig. So tell me about going back to York for this big outdoor fest thing.
You're right. I think it was like maybe 2013 or something like that.
Yeah, it was a while back. Yeah.
And it was great. Yeah, it was exactly what I expected. The only thing that really made me sad about that show was not being able to go out at the end of the night to shake hands and give hugs and take pictures and stuff like that. We had our security guy gather a bunch of stuff, and he masked up and was very safe about it, and hand saying out the, but he like very safely went out and gathered a bunch of things and brought it back, and we signed him and he gave them back to him. But I was really bummed that I really hope that's the only part that really eats me up. I'm glad we're able to play again, but I really miss the interactive part. That's the part that's fun for me. Yeah, that's what kind of I feel like I haven't fulfilled my workday unless unless we do that. And that's kind of just been a part of our daily. It's been a part of Halestorm's DNA since the beginning, is that interaction with people. So, you know, that's just the kind of band we are. So it felt weird not being able to do that. But at the same time, you know, it was, I could just feel the energy from the crowd, how many people there, probably for most of them, it was probably their first concert back post, you know, lockdown and all that. And yeah, like it was such a grateful, wonderful energy. It was just, yeah, it was mind blowing. I remember looking back to my drum tech, like, are you hearing this? You know, they must be breaking decibel levels just from the crowd. You know, we were drowning out the Ring of Fire ride that was over at the fair. You know, and, yeah, the popcorn machine. Yeah, no, it was great, and they inducted us into the Central PA Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or whatever, and it was yeah, like wow, like I remember going to those ceremonies and seeing all of the local heroes getting these things, and it's such a trip. It's so mind blowing now to be in that club, and it feels great, you know, because most of the bands that have won that award in Central PA were bands that helped us out a lot, gave us a leg up, and they were just so glad to finally have us be a part of it. So I was very grateful for that too.
Awesome. And I know how proud everybody is there of you guys. That you know, I thought it was a very nice symbol for the first big show back for you guys to be there up in York, PA, which is a great part of the country, very close to the beautiful Gettysburg battlefield, also the Antietam battlefield, Civil War battlefield.
We're going there as a kid.
Oh yeah, great part of the country. Now then, let us move on to new music.
Yes.
And let us first begin with the fact that you are working with one of my favorite behind the scenes, other side of the microphone people, the great Nick Raskulinecz. Because I always say Nick Raskulinecz is less a human being and more a sort of force of nature. And that's the reason why he's able to make bands sound their best. So tell me about working with Nick this time.
Yeah, his style of producing is it's very signature, but yet very transparent when it comes to the artists that he works with. I feel like no two of his records really sound the same. You wouldn't really assume that the Foo Fighters record and the Mastodon record or the Evanescence record would all be done by the same guy, but he's so good at just identifying the identity of the bands that he works with. And I think a big part of that is that most of the bands that he works with, he's a fan of, you know, like not only are we fans of him as a producer, but he's always been a fan of us as a live band. And he was one of the only dudes to come up to us and actually say, look, you guys have always strived to capture that live energy on record, but have failed to do so every single time on our last 3 records. And, you know, no fault of the producers that we worked with in the past. Love Jay Joyce, love Howard Benson. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have gotten here. They were just so they were the best producers to work with as a novice band because they had such a great system already put in place. But Nick, I feel like where he shines are bands that have a very signature sound. Bands like Ghost, bands like Code Orange, where you hear them and you're like, oh, I like, he really is great at capturing the DNA of a band's sound. And I think for us, we've always been primarily a live band. That's how we have gotten to where we are. We just play a lot of shows and we try to put on a good show, and we've earned our fan base one show at a time, and one fan telling their friends, hey, check out this band, and so forth for, well, I don't know, 20 something years now. So yeah, so that's like, I think that's my favorite part about his style of producing, is that he really he challenges us to be as much of ourselves as possible, which I think our fault is that we can get way too much in our own heads sometimes. And if it was left to the 4 of us to produce a record, it would take probably 20 years to do one record because we would second guess ourselves the whole time. So he's just a great fifth voice of reason. He's a great coach. He's like, I like what you're doing. I don't like that, tweak that, change that, do it like this, like let's try this. He's great at things like that. So I love working with him because he really encourages me to be myself on the drums too. I think with every producer I've worked with, considering the era that we came out of, which was mid 2000s, and it was kind of more like big, simple arena rock kind of, like that was kind of what was popular at the time on the radio. And at this point, we're just like, well, we could either try to create as much open, breathable space, so when we play these songs in arenas, they can sound really big, or we could try to do almost the opposite, but tastefully. Like let's try to bring out more personality. Let's try to be even more ourselves in the sense of bringing more energy to the songs. Because like it or not, like when we play without a click track live, so the songs are going to be a little bit faster. We're going to throw in certain we're going to throw more notes in here and there. We're gonna get excited and do something crazy. So this record, again, I feel like with every record we do, we have that much more experience, and we get even closer and closer to matching our live energy. And that's just, it's been consistently our MO when it goes into going into the studio. And so that's where we're at. Once again, we're like, let's try to amp it up even more. And not playing a show for a year and a half definitely brought out a lot more aggression, I think, in us in the studio. We said, working on this record throughout an entire pandemic, it's either going to be the best record we put out, or it's going to be the most insane record we put out, and everyone's either going to love it or hate it. So I hope that they love it. So I love it. It gets me excited. I feel like with these new songs, there's an energy and excitement there that has been lacking in the last couple records. I haven't had to put on that, okay, keep everything really consistent, keep everything really simple. Remember, keep the space and everything. And a big thanks to that is our friend Scott Stevens, that we've written most of our hits with. And he has really been wanting to bring that energy out of us, and especially bring that chaos out of me that I have a tendency to slip into when I'm channeled into performing live. So that was the goal for Scott and for Nick, for me to I'm actually in the process of retracking a bunch of songs and adding more notes and adding more energy and getting even crazier. So it's going to be fun. I'm using double bass for the first time in years, and so it's been a fun new challenge. It's definitely been a stamina challenge for sure. So I think it'll be fun, but it's going to be exhausting.
What was the where are we talking about on the calendar that this has been done? And I'm assuming most everything has been done there in Nashville too, right?
Yeah. We finished. So we had been writing throughout the entire pandemic, obviously remotely over Zoom and stuff like that, doing co-writes over Zoom. I feel like that was the only thing I could do over Zoom, was just write and just to do co-writes and just compile music and songs and lyrics and ideas. And and when we finally were at the point where, like, okay, we felt comfortable going in the studio, obviously with masks on and being very safe, and obviously social distancing, which luckily Nick has a big live room. So I'm in the back corner. The three, each one of us took a corner. And it was fun to get to play in together in the same room again finally. So that was a couple, I'd say, month or two ago. We finally got like our final batch of songs after finally being able to co-write with Scott, who's a very busy guy, but just such a great match for us as far as songwriters go. And yeah, so we did 4 songs with him, and they were the most chaotic songs. A lot of the drum parts, he encouraged me to go crazy. So we did that a couple, and so yeah, that was like 1 or 2 months ago. And then over the past month or so, Nick and I have been going back through the old songs and retracking all the drums that we had recorded last year, like end of last year when we first started out in the studio. Because also keep in mind, I hadn't played an acoustic kit in a year either. So I was definitely a little rusty. I got through it pretty well, but I definitely was like, oh, but now that we're doing shows and we're getting more comfortable and feeling just like way more like our game has been upped as musicians and as players. It's been a lot more. It's been a lot more fun and easy for me to go in the studio and start, getting a little more comfortable with adding some crazy things on the drums. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing right now.
Will you be doing any more than perhaps one new song on this run in August, September?
It's looking like I think we're just going to be releasing a new single. Yes, finally. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that next. Let's talk about this song specifically and any sort of insight you can give to it. Back from the Dead.
Oh, okay, yes. This was one of the first songs that we wrote with Scott, and one of the first ones of that batch that we tracked, and we listened to it and we're like, uh-oh, like we got our work cut out for us. This one's gonna be crazy. and we still have yet to learn how to play it live. Oh, sorry, my dog's barking. Oreo! Someone's at the door. Sorry. Let me close that door.
You can check the door if you want. I don't want the puppy upset.
Oh, no, it's fine. Whoever's there can wait. It's only raining outside. No. So anyway, yeah, Back from the Dead. I'm excited about this one. I think it's great. I think it's a great song. I think that Scott is on fire right now as a writer and as a producer, and it shows because he's extremely busy. He's working a lot of records right now, which I'm so glad he had the time to fit us in. And yeah, once we got this song back, it was one of those game changers. It was one of those like, uh-oh, like we need to go back now and listen to all these songs and compare it, because now the bar has been raised.
Yeah.
And the whole time last year in recording, we're like kind of running blind. We're like, is this a good song? Is this a good song? I don't know. Sending songs to management and the label. Like, what do you guys think? What do you think? And it's just hard to tell what a good song is. But when we heard Back from the Dead, it all clicked. We were just like, okay, now we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Now we're at that pivotal point that we have gotten to consistently with every record, whereas as soon as we're about to hit panic mode and we're like, we're doomed. Like, this record's going to be terrible. What do we do? We don't know. We get one, we finally write a song and we're like, oh, now it makes sense. I get it now. So that was the song we're like, okay, I think we have something. And now we're comparing, and we're holding that song up to all the other ones that we tracked and being more critical. We're like, eliminating songs that we feel are not as strong, and then taking songs that we think that are up to par, and then reworking them and re-recording them and retracking them and trying to bring them up to the same level. And on top of that, we're still writing new songs. We never really stop writing, but we're still kind of nose to the grindstone, just writing our butts off right now. Still, that's the one.
When do you think there's going to be a full record out then?
Oh, I'd like to know that too. I honestly don't know. I hope, God, I hope by next year. I'm hoping hopefully early next year. Don't quote me on that. I don't know that for sure. But we are planning on tracking in October, because we have a short run in September. And then I think for most of October, we're going to be tracking in the studio. I think after this show, we're going to be tracking some more next week. And then we have the Evanescence tour in November, which I'm so excited about because I love those guys. And we will be playing a new song on that tour. So I'm stoked about that.